if that theme doesn't get your adrenaline going, I'm not really sure what will. It could be worth the admission price just to hear that theme, and I look forward to it in the next event. Are there going to be more Avengers movies? Someone tell me down in the comments, because I really want to know if there are going to be more Avengers films. I mean, there has to be more, right? Please. Please, Russo brothers, let there be more. Okay, just in case you clicked on this video and you didn't see the title, yes, this is my spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen Endgame and you don't want it spoiled, I know you don't want it to be, click away. Like right now, click away, okay? There's your warning. Now, let's get into some spoilers. Let me preface this by saying that my most favorite movie of all time is The Dark Knight. I understand, of course, that it's not the best movie of all time, but it is my most favorite. There's definitely a difference. So now that you know that, that might give you just a glimpse into the kind of person I am as far as my taste in superhero movies are concerned. I really don't like campy humor. In fact, when it comes to superhero movies, my general philosophy is the less humor, the better. I'm not saying that comic relief is a bad thing. It is a good thing. But these days, and by these days I mean the past 10 years, sometimes it can be a little bit overdone. And by a little, I mean a lot. Probably the worst example of this being in Civil War, when the two factions, you know, the Captain America side and the Iron Man side are fighting against each other, and it's really dramatic, and you feel the emotional weight of the scene, and you can't believe that these people are infighting like this, and then they throw in this little quip. We're still friends, right? Depends on how hard you hit me. And I remember just sitting there in the theater, and like all of the investment that I had in that particular scene at that moment, and almost the entire movie it just completely disappeared. And I was like, oh, thanks whoever wrote that. I think the Russo brothers did, right? I don't know. So that's just a little glimmer into my opinion or my approach as far as humor is concerned with these films. Now again, I don't think that comic relief is a bad thing, but with a movie that has this level of impact and is this big a deal, I think that the humor needs to be very minimal and the drama needs to be at a level 11. I think it's best if a movie of this size grips you and just doesn't let go for 2.5 hours, and there's very little humor, very little relief. That might sound like a kind of extreme opinion, but the fact is that we've waited so long for this particular movie, and the humor in it can just take away from the drama. Okay, I've explained myself enough. It's just that I want to make absolutely clear why I'm about to say the things that I'm about to say. Okay, so when this movie opened, I thought that it was awesome. There were no credits, there was no title, there was no like Marvel thing, whatever. It was just like, bam, here we are into the movie. That was a really good way to start. And at the very beginning, you're a little apprehensive because you're like, okay, what's going on here? Why are things so pleasant? Like, things shouldn't be that pleasant. And then Hawkeye's daughter, gone. And I remember my reaction as I was sitting there the first time. I was just like, oh, shoot. And a lot of other people besides me said more explicit words than that. And then, bam, suddenly his entire family is gone. And you're like, okay, this is the kind of movie that we're getting into. I usually don't have any sense of what scenes could be cut to make it a better film. But I truly believe that it could have made this movie just 1% better if the scene between Nebula and Iron Man was cut after they're like flicking the little football thing. Because it's kind of, there are some parallels between the opening of Endgame and Infinity War in the sense that Infinity War grabbed you immediately with this drama and like a death of a major character. Like right off the bat, you're like, oh dang, like this is pretty dark. And there wasn't really any moments after that, for a good amount of time at least, that kind of took you out of it, that gave you that comic relief. But in Endgame, you have this really dramatic and kind of horrifying situation right off the bat, but then there's this 30-second clip that just kind of makes light of the whole thing, and then you kind of feel a little bit taken out of it, I guess. So if they had just completely cut that part of Nebula and Iron Man playing a little football game, I think it would have made the movie 1 to 2% better. Because then you cut from that dramatic scene into another dramatic scene where Iron Man's life is being threatened. So you kind of keep that tension going. So we think that all hope is lost with Iron Man and Nebula, you know, and then our hero, Captain Marvel, comes and saves the day. Unfortunately, though, any kind of sense of a hero that we had in Captain Marvel is ruined because of her insufferable arrogance. She saves the day in a really dramatic fashion, which is great, of course, but then when she comes down and they're having that little discussion about how they're going to defeat Thanos, she just says, I'll be right back, as if she's like going to the grocery store or something. And then they say, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to go kill Thanos. Almost as if she's just like checking off, like, okay, I bought eggs at the store. There we go. What's next? And I really appreciate how the characters actually call her out on that. They're like, hey, new girl. Like, that's not how we do things here, okay? We're the Avengers. We do things as a team. And that's the first thing I thought of, too. It's like, you've had one movie, okay? Like, the audience barely knows you. And now, like, you are acting as if, like, you can just take him on solo. Like, look how important I am. Okay, I'm being a little overdramatic, but it was just kind of annoying to see how she was just like, oh, I'm going to go kill Thanos. See you in an hour. It's like, well, no. I mean, the whole point of this movie is to see if we can defeat Thanos together, okay? When they arrived at the planet, I thought that the planet in which Thanos was inhabiting, I thought that it was going to be the beginning of, like, an awesome 2-hour battle, like the battle scene that we had all anticipated. I thought that it was going to be like Mad Max Fury Road, which, if you haven't seen, you should do so right now, which is it's basically just like a 2-hour car chase. I mean, there's, like, you know, windows here and there of drama and a plot. But for the most part, it's just like a giant car chase. And I thought, like, oh, okay, awesome. Right off the bat, they're going to go down there, and they're going to fight Thanos, and it's going to be this long, epic, awesome brawl, and, like, I don't really know what's going to happen, but it's going to be sweet. But no, Thanos is a farmer. One of the most evil characters to exist is picking fruit. And I suppose that that's not too weird, because his ultimate goal was peace, you know, a very perverted sense of peace. But at the same time, I thought that things would be a little more dramatic down in Thanos land. Actually, my first thought was that he might be using the Reality Stone to mess with him, and then he would, you know, come back in some way, or like he would reveal that he's, you know, something else, kind of like how we did in Infinity War. But no, they just kind of come down, and then Thor chops his head off. I loved the delivery of Chris Hemsworth's line where he says, "I went for the head." Like, he sounds so broken, and he sounds like, it's what I should have done. Like, it's my fault that, you know, trillions died. I thought that was a really poignant moment. Small, but poignant nonetheless. So then the screen cuts to black, and it says 5 years later. Now, this is a part of the movie that was also really good. Some people complained that the movie kind of started slow, but I actually enjoyed how it sort of took its time and really, you know, let us absorb how miserable everything was after Thanos did the little snap. Then they zoom into where Ant-Man is in his little truck, and a rat flicks a switch, and then Ant-Man comes back. After you see the end of this movie, you realize that a rat is responsible for the victory of the Avengers. This is kind of the ultimate example of Deus Ex Machina, which is like some kind of convenient trope in a movie that just like makes things easier and better for people. Thought that was an interesting decision by the Russo brothers to include that in there. There are a myriad of other dramatic ways that Ant-Man could have been brought back, but no. A rat is responsible for the defeat of Thanos. So, thank you, Mr. Rat. We owe our lives to you. When the Avengers mentioned that time, or when they came to the conclusion that time travel was the way that they were going to defeat Thanos, I was a bit unconvinced / confused, because as some of the Avengers very wisely brought up, in every single movie in the past and historically that has dealt with time travel, it hasn't really worked that way. And the Hulk mentions that it is the quantum realm that, you know, sort of explains time travel, but he just kind of says that that's the way it is. It doesn't really explain it any further. I guess it becomes more clear as the film progresses, but it would have been cool to have at least a more, like, in-depth explanation of how time travel really works. But I guess when the Russo brothers were writing it, they were like, you know what? Time travel is a paradox. Like, we can't explain this any more than Back to the Future can. So perhaps it should just be another instance of telling the audience, hey, just go with it. So now the Avengers believe that time travel can work, but they need to go to someone who can actually help them build some kind of machine. So they naturally go to Tony Stark. He and Captain America are still kind of on the outs. Oh, and by the way, that scene where Tony Stark is all thinned out and he gets up and he's angry, that is a great scene. The acting is just wonderful, and I love the drama and the tension that's there. You know, it's still there from Civil War. But anyway, Tony Stark has a kid now, a very adorable little girl, and it kind of stops right there. She can't act, but she is insanely cute, and I'm sure that when the casting directors were looking for a kid, they were like, she's got to be as cute as possible. Well, can she act? Who cares? I mean, no one really is going to be talking about the kid. They just want to see the Avengers. And I can understand that. You know, I can see the logic. But it still kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. You know, she was just didn't really do anything except be there and be cute. So Tony Stark is unconvinced. So they have to go to an even bigger brain, the Hulk. This scene was kind of interesting in the sense that the Hulk now has control of himself, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was like, oh, I wonder how they're going to implement this into the movie. You know, now he can like be the Hulk at all times. But of course, they had to go and stick yet another unnecessary, humorous scene in which these teenagers come up and try to get him to sign autographs, what have you, and the Ant-Man kind of like poses his ego on them, and then the Hulk dabs at the end. Marvel movies seem to have this idea that they will be cool if they can put memes or trends into their films. Like with Black Panther, when she said, "What are those?" and now the Hulk doing dab, and later with Thor doing Fortnite. I mean, this has no staying power. Not only is it cringy, but it has no staying power. Like 5, 10, 15 years from now, people are going to watch these movies and they're going to be more confused than amused. I kind of felt like Captain America in that scene where he's like, "Hey, Bruce, like, can we focus here? Like, can we keep this going? You know, like, we have to sort of reverse the fact that trillions of people have died and, like, you're over here dabbing for kids." At first, I didn't know what he was doing. Like, his arms are so big, he was kind of, like, doing this, like, I was like, what are you doing? Like a Mr. Universe pose? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something? It was weird. Meanwhile, Clint is mourning the loss of his family, and he and Natasha kind of meet up. I thought this was a really poignant scene. I thought that when Clint hears that there might be a chance for his family, and he says, don't give me hope. I thought that was so sad, and like that's exactly the way that I felt like he should have reacted. And you know, Jeremy Renner does a great job acting, and the fact that Natasha's so easily able to pull him back like a younger brother who's kind of like gone off a deep end, I thought was really good, and I really appreciated it in this movie. This is a small detail, and I know that I'm kind of nitpicking here, but when they go and find Thor and this peppy upbeat music plays, it also takes me out. It was like, why is this upbeat? I'm sure most of you guys watching by now think that like I have no soul and I don't like humor at all. I do love humor. It's just that I feel like with a movie of this magnitude and this serious, the humor should be kept at a very, very small minimum. But it was just everywhere in this movie. So they find Thor, and he, is rocking his big Lebowski look. He's got this, enormous amount of hair. He's got a nice big beer gut, and he's playing Fortnite with some of the kids. A lot of people were angry with what the Russo brothers did with Thor in this movie, and I can tend to agree with them. It's not that much fun like seeing an Avenger as powerful as Thor in kind of this weakened state. But he is one of the more emotional Avengers, and so it kind of makes sense for him to like go into hiding and be drinking his cares away. At the same time, though, I think it's kind of ridiculous how he's not even interested in getting back at Thanos. Like he's completely within himself, and he doesn't want to like branch out at all. It's only when Rocket says that they have beer on the plane is when he wants to go. Now, of course, maybe there was something else going on in his mind. Maybe he was thinking like, okay, maybe I do actually want to help. But the fact that beer kind of pushed him over the side, it just seems kind of cheap and like not at all like something Thor would do. So after a few more scenes, after a few more talking, it was at this point in the theater when I felt this sick weight of disappointment just settling in my stomach. I couldn't believe that the movie was taking this much time to get to any kind of action, and that it had all this filler and all these really terrible jokes. And I just felt my shoulders droop like, oh man, I can't believe that it's actually kind of bad. But then, the Hulk approaches the Ancient One, and she gives him the Time Stone, realizing that Doctor Strange probably wanted it to be this way. And then my spirits lifted, and I was like, aha, now it's getting good. So more shenanigans ensue, and Captain America finds himself face-to-face with another Captain America, and they're about to throw down. This scene was kind of entertaining, because it's cool to see, like, one character versus another character, and how, like, one timeline sort of interacts with the other, like how he says, like, I can do this all day. It's like, yeah, I know. Like, that was kind of funny. But ultimately, it's not exactly necessary. He starts off with the wand thing, he ends up with the wand thing, and he does that little quip about America's butt. And I was like, okay, that was kind of cool, I guess, but, again, not exactly necessary for the plot. However, the scene between Tony and his father, I thought, was really, really good. Mostly because of the amazing acting by Robert Downey Jr. This man has decades of experience under his belt as an actor, and I think it really, really shines in this particular scene. Just the way that his eyes and his eyebrows, just his face in general, kind of is holding back this, like, wonder and also terror of being found out, like, as his son, like, as these two, like, timelines are crossing. It's great, and I think RDJ did a great job in this particular scene. I really enjoyed how they showed a lighter side of his father, how he had lines like, he's not even here, and there's already nothing that I wouldn't do for him. Like, I thought that was really good writing, and that was a very good decision to sort of strengthen that connection between Tony and his father. And it was kind of funny when he hugged him and he said, "Thank you for everything that you've done for this country." Also, a scene that was kind of unintentionally funny was when Captain America sees Peggy, and he like walks up to the window, and he gets this close, and Peggy's like looking down at her files, and of course she doesn't put her head up. I mean, if that kind of thing happened in real life, the first thing that would happen when they're about 5 feet away is that she would look up. If it was real life, it would be like something like this. Yeah! But since it's a movie, she didn't look up, and I just thought it was kind of funny. Like, what would have happened if she had like looked up and saw this man like staring at her in the face? So now Hawkeye and the Black Widow are going to go get the Soul Stone, and it took me a while to realize that one of them had to die. The first time I watched it, my body was filled with a lot of adrenaline, and I could feel like my insides tightening when I realized that one of them had to die, and they were both like fighting each other. Oh man, it was so... The realization was very shocking. The second time I watched it, because yes, I've seen it twice now, I actually cried because I could anticipate it more, and I was a little bit more relaxed, and so my emotions kind of flowed more freely, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. I was like, it'd be one thing for them to sacrifice one person, but the fact that they are actually fighting each other to see who's going to die, it somehow made it even worse. So through a lot of sacrifice, the Avengers finally get all the stones, and the Hulk snaps. So things look fine and dandy, of course, until we realize that Thanos has made his way through. It was actually funny. Both times I saw this in the theater, when Ant-Man says, "Guys, I think it worked," and then you see that missile coming down, someone let out an expletive between "I think it worked" and the impact of the missile. The timing was just kind of hilarious. Like, "Guys, I think it worked." Silence. Oh, shit. I remember sitting there in the theater and thinking, like, oh man, like, now it's starting. Like, it's kind of been built up to this point, but now it's starting. Like, now we're getting into the fight. And speaking of which, the fight between Captain America, Thor, Iron Man versus Thanos, that was awesome. And I love the build up between it. Like, the three of them just kind of like walking slowly to Thanos, like, okay, like, we might die here, but we gotta fight this man. We've done it before, but we gotta try it again. There have been a few complaints about the fact that Thanos uses like this giant sword in the movie. I think it's great. I love this like visceral, dangerous quality to it, like the immediate danger of it, like how it's this giant blade, and at any point it could like slice your head off. So watching the three of them throw down with the giant purple man, it's pretty sweet. When Captain America becomes worthy of the hammer, like when the hammer comes flying at him and he grabs it, the whole theater like exploded in clapping and hoops and hollers. But I remember just sitting there and being like, and I guess it's because I thought that you had to be a god in order to even yield that hammer. I thought that there were two qualifications. You had to be a god, and you had to be worthy. Seeing as how Captain America is not a god, I would guess I was a little confused. Maybe I was just forgetting that scene in Age of Ultron where Captain America almost lifted it up. So he was like sort of worthy back then, but now he was fully worthy. The second time, though, I definitely joined in on the hooping and the hollering. One of the great things about Captain America is how inspiring he is. He doesn't necessarily have superpowers in the traditional sense, but man, his will and his heart to fight for what he loves and to never give up is what makes him Captain America. And when he's defeated, when Thanos has chopped his impenetrable shield to bits, and he sees all the armies of the outer world coming at him, he still gets up, tightens that strap, and walks forward to fight them. And then, of course, the moment we've all been waiting for, when you hear on your left, and all the portals in the world open up, and everybody comes back, and the music is playing, and the drums are going, and it gives me shivers just thinking about it. So all the Avengers come back, everyone's lined up, ready to face Thanos and all of his armies, and then Captain America says, "Avengers! Assemble." And then the theme plays. Bum, 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 bum. I know I've already sung it. I know I already did it, but it was just... I was actually like laughing. I was so jazzed and happy. I was sitting there just like, oh man. So that alone was worth the ticket price. A short while later, Captain Marvel comes back, and we get more insufferable arrogance. She meets Peter Parker, and he's kind of lying there, like he does with the gauntlet. He's like, "Hey, I'm Peter Parker." She's like, Hey, Peter Parker, you got something for me? I'm Captain Marvel. I can withstand anything. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of annoying to have her back, but I suppose it was necessary. At least she served her purpose to destroy Thanos' ship. Yay. So the defining moment of the movie is when Iron Man gets the stones, and he snaps, and he reverses everything. That I thought that with those kinds of stakes, Thanos would have at least charged him or something. Like, there's a good 30 to 40 seconds of Thanos realizing that Iron Man has the stones and Iron Man snapping. You would think that Thanos, as soon as he saw those stones, like, forming into the shape of his wrist, he would have been like, no! And just, like, charged him. But no, Thanos just kind of sits there like, well, I guess this is about the time where I have to be defeated, so... In any case, though, it was awesome to hear him say, and I am Iron Man. Who would have thought that that's what would have led to his death? You know, in a sense, all the movies that have been since 2008 till now are kind of the story of Iron Man. I mean, the first one was Iron Man, and now this one concludes with his death. So maybe in a sense, if you're going to focus on one person, focus on Iron Man. You could travel his story for the past 11 years. Another problem I have with the time travel bit of this movie is that Thanos doesn't really know 80% of the superheroes that come to defeat him. Like when Wanda comes down and says, like, in a really strained, borderline crying way, like, you took everything from me. And Thanos is like, I don't even know who you are. It's like, well, yeah, he doesn't know who she is. And that in and of itself kind of makes it, like, not as interesting or not as dramatic or compelling. So I just wish they would have thought of a different way to get all these stones back and defeat Thanos without time travel. So Iron Man dies, and then the Russo brothers thought this would be a great time to put in yet another comic relief scene. And this is the one that just pissed me off the most because it went on and on and on, and it was right after the death of Iron Man, one of the most, if not the most beloved character in the MCU, and now we have to get some relief from the tension through this ridiculous pissing contest between Quill and Thor. Now, to be fair, it is very well acted, and I thought that some of the jokes landed, but the timing of it and the fact that it just kept going and going and going, and the fact that it's even kind of recycled, like in Infinity War, they have that kind of contest, if you will, which I thought was pretty hilarious, given the dialogue and the timing of it. It's like a pirate had a baby with an angel. That's one of my all-time favorite Drax lines. But here, I mean, like, if it was... If they had put it in, like, right when Thor is convinced to go along with the Avengers to defeat Thanos, that would have been great. But the fact that it's after Iron Man's death, it's just like, okay, I guess we have to sit through this too. Some people have also been complaining about how many endings there are, but I feel like it's justified. I mean, we've been waiting 11 years for this movie. The fact that you have, like, 2 or 3 endings, it's not a problem. And yes, I am one of those rare people that do not mind all the endings from Return of the King. Sorry. So the first 15 minutes and the last hour of this movie are definitely worth it. There are a few impactful moments scattered out through here and there, but for the most part, it's mostly filler with some really poorly timed jokes and sequences of humor. Infinity War is definitely a better film. There was more action scenes, more appropriate implementation of characters, the humor was better timed, and it kept that dramatic tension all the way throughout the film. And in fact, I would say it kind of started off low and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And the biggest illustration that I have of the difference between the two is that as soon as Infinity War was over, I had the urge to watch it again. As soon as the credits rolled, I was like, I want to see it again, right now. But once Endgame was over, I didn't have that urge. So take it for how it is. And I'm giving this one an 8.3 out of 10. So have you seen Endgame? I know that most of you have. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. I know there's going to be probably a lot of thoughts that you guys have, and I'm very interested to engage with you on it. Change my mind, if you will. I would definitely appreciate it if my mind could be changed about this particular movie, because I really want to love it. But for right now, I just kind of like it. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you on the next cinematic adventure.